A nation starts the grieving process as the bodies of the Munroe family arrive in the capital to begin a journey of mourning.
It's expected to turn around our economy, and today the Christie administration launched the Bahamas' first ever National Development Plan. I'm Myles Munroe, and you can hear all the details coming up in the Bahamas Tonight.
Private Sector Education Task Force warns that VAT registration ends at the end of the month and businesses must be ready. We've got all those details coming up in the Bahamas Tonight.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The bodies of 5 of the crash victims from last Sunday's tragedy are home today. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keisha Latterly.
And I'm Chris Saunders. Thank you so much for joining us. 2 flights carrying the mortal remains of Dr. Myles Munroe and his wife, Ruth, Dr. Richard Pinder and pilot Stanley Thurston and Farrakhan Cooper arrived in the capital around 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Now, scores stood by as the nation prepared to bid final farewell to the group whose shocking deaths are slowly being absorbed. It was a sad homecoming as the disbelief surrounding last Sunday's plane crash hit home with a strong, sobering dose of reality. The gold-draped coffin of Dr. Myles Munroe emerged from a Sky Bahamas flight which also transported his wife Ruth and confidant Dr. Richard Pinder. A Flamingo Air flight transported the bodies of the 2 pilots. With a gentle touch and a slow march, pallbearers escorted Dr. Myles Munroe's hearse as 4 others followed. It was the first opportunity to posthumously honor Pastor Myles and Ruth Munroe, Pastor Richard Pinder, and Captain Stanley and Farrakhan Cooper. Seated inside Bahamas Air's hangar at the Lyndon Pindling International Airport, there were quiet tears among the families and a presence which spoke loudly to the love and respect the group commanded. The first memorial allowed some of the early tributes.
This nation now feels, with the loss of such a great man and great leaders, we thank God for his life and legacy, and the legacy of all those who perished in the fatal plane crash on last week Sunday. Our prayers continue to be with you, that God will continue to strengthen the family, that God will continue to strengthen BFM, that God will continue to strengthen even the Bahamas and the nations of the world.
The Bahamas Christian Council President's remarks were preceded by prayers for a family and a nation enduring one of its hardest weeks.
Lives are woven in the cloth of ministry. We take note today, God, that it is a sacrifice.
Your presence is here. Your Holy Spirit has not left us.
Memories of Dr. Myles Munroe are perhaps as vast as his repertoire of public quotes, and for the last week, they've been ringing in everyone's ear.
With your future trapped on the inside. I'm glad for that because no one really controls your future. It's inside you.
And as he and his associates make their final journey, the consolation is in the unforgettable story.
Calling it the hardest week of their lives, the families of Dr. Richard Pinder, along with the family of Dr. Myles and Ruth Munroe, addressed the congregation of Bahamas Faith Ministries International this weekend, saying they were only able to do so as a result of love, support, and prayer from their church family. The top leadership, along with 6 others, were killed in that plane crash in Grand Bahama last week Sunday. And as Sieska Adley tells us tonight, their families are urging the members to join with them as they continue on a great legacy that has been left behind.
Pastor Sheena Pinder lost her husband, Dr. Richard Pinder, her sister Ruth, and brother-in-law, Dr. Myles Munroe, in last Sunday's plane crash over in Grand Bahama. To a roaring round of applause and cheers, the matriarch addressed the congregation of Bahamas Ministries International on Sunday. Standing next to her son and nephew, Pinder says she was only able to stand and greet the membership because of the love, support, and prayers that they've been shown over the past week.
I am convinced that they left me behind so that I could keep these four in line. And to make sure that they walk the straight and narrow. While they were here, I didn't take no stuff, and I just ain't gonna take no stuff now.
Richard Renner Pinder Jr. said it was important for them to speak to their BFM family as they stand together to advance his family's vision.
We just want you to know that, as we've said privately, that this is only the beginning. This isn't the end. Our parents started the work, and it did not die with them. All of these people standing around us and behind us, this just goes to show this is just the beginning.
Choked up, Myles Munroe Jr. called this past week the hardest not only for him, his family, but everyone who was affected by the tragedy. And it's only because of the BFM family that he has the strength to stand before them.
There's one thing that we've learned is you can't take life for granted. You have to appreciate the moment. You know, I encourage everyone this week. People that are in your life that you love and that you care about and that mean a lot to you, make sure you tell them. Don't take for granted that you'll be able to tell them. Don't take for granted you'll be able to tell them tomorrow, because tomorrow isn't promised.
Sunday's service marked a new era for BFM as the congregation welcomed new leadership. Pastor Dave Burrows now serves as the senior pastor for the church. C.S. Scatterly, ZNS Network News.
Well, the widow of the late Con Cooper, one of the pilots, describes him as her best friend, a loving father, humble, and a family man who sought to bring people together. He was one of the pilots, as we've said, killed in that aviation tragedy just over a week ago, which claimed 8 other lives, including Dr. Myles Munroe. Well, today, the grieving widow spoke to our Cleopatra Murphy about how the family is dealing with its loss.
I don't wish this on anybody. To ever have to go through picking out a coffin for my 34-year-old husband. It was really hard. And to watch the boys, that's where my pain comes more.
Dr. Atanish Adderley Cooper struggled to contain her tears as she mourned the loss of her husband, pilot Con Cooper. She says her spouse of 5.5 years made dinner before he left home last Sunday and was supposed to return the same day, but that never happened. She says although she knew he was gone, it was difficult to accept.
But I still didn't connect yet with everything. But when I went to Iran and had to do the interviews with the police and the identification process, it started to come like, okay, it just all feels like a dream right now. It just feels like a nightmare.
They have 2 sons, 3-year-old Elijah and 1-year-old Zion. She says the 1-year-old still calls out for his dad. The grieving widow talked about their adjustment and says death has cheated them of a father.
If you ask him where his dad is, he said the 3-year-old saying that he's flying the angels. So so far he seems okay, but I don't know how it's going to be when we pass by Odyssey Airport, because that was their special time.
Her aunt Paulette Zonicle says Con was what every mother would have wanted for her daughter.
We have lost such a wonderful member of our family. My niece has lost such a good husband and her best friend, her soulmate, and the nation has lost a gift.
The grieving wife says her husband had a shocking death, but he died doing what he loved.
Even though it ended tragic, I can rest assured I know he probably wouldn't have gone any other way.
The loss of her best friend has not been easy to adjust to, but the young widow says she is thankful for the outpouring of support from the nation. She says it is a help during this difficult time. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Lux Men's Warehouse.